Hi guys, welcome back for chapter 3. This is going to be on arcade games, and we are going to start with the first ever arcade game, Pong. So on my screen right now is just an overview of where we will be going. So I just wanted to show you what everything will look like so you can kind of conceptualize it and know where we're going. So here it is. There we are. So we're going to make some progress to get you guys a final Pong game. I'm gonna come over to, this is just my blank setup so we can get started. The first thing we're gonna get started with is we want our sprite to bounce off the edge of the screen, or bounce off when it hits the edge of the screen. So there's a pre-made command for this, if on edge bounce, and we're gonna combine that with move 10 steps because we wanted to get to the edge, and then we're gonna put this in a loop for forever. Something else I'm gonna do to make it a little more interesting, because when you start like this, it's just gonna keep going horizontally across the screen, but I'm going to add a little bit of an angle just so it makes it a little more interesting. Alrighty, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna come right here to add a new sprite, and we are going to rename this paddle. We need something to control to be able to play our game. So this is gonna be our paddle, and we're gonna come to this paintbrush icon, and you wanna click on this line tool, and I'm gonna make my brush size a little thicker so that my line is just a little thicker, more paddle-like. Also, I want it to be purple. There we go. So now we've got that. I'm gonna put it on the right-hand side of my space up there. And then now that we have our paddle created, we wanna be able to actually move it. So we're gonna start with a preliminary set of codes to get it moving, and then we're going to advance that to give us a little more control and less lag time. But to start off, we're just gonna use this command, and we want to be able to use our up and down arrow. So I'll start with our up arrow, and then we want our Y to change by however much you want your Y to change. We're just going to keep ours with 10. I'll duplicate. I wanted to duplicate both. So positive number up, use a -10 to go down, and now we can, I'm pressing my up and down keys to make my paddle move. Now I am going to come back into my sprite command because we're going to make some codes for the sprite to touch. When it touches the paddle, we want it to bounce. So right now it's at, when it's touching the edge, it'll bounce, so it'll go right through the paddle. And it's important that we go back to the sprite command, because for what we're trying to do, we wouldn't want to make it in the paddle, because there's not going to be any way for us to make if touching paddle because we are on the paddle. But if something like that happens and you're making your commands and your codes in the wrong script area, you can just drag it over and it'll appear in the right area. So it will never be an issue where you have to completely scrap it and start over. But we are going to start with a new command that I already have started here, touching paddle. And so I started with a sensing command touching paddle. And when you click this drop down, you'll go down to paddle. And we used the if, so it's like cause and effect. If touching paddle, then what do we want to happen? We obviously want our sprite to bounce off the paddle. So we're gonna come back to this after we create a bounce command. So here in bounce, make block bounce, I'm actually gonna make a new one so we can go through it together. Make bounce. Okay, so some of the things that we want now are, we want a few variables. We want an entry angle and an exit angle. So when our sprite is going in to hit the paddle, we'll be at one angle, and then a reflection off of the paddle will be a different angle. So we'll make those two variables here. I already have them made. Usually they will come up on the screen like this in the white space. They'll be up there, but to prevent those from distracting you, you can come over and uncheck the boxes. So I just made the variables here, and now we're going to set our entry angle to, come over to the operator command, blank minus blank, and we'll put some information in those blanks. Next, we're going to set our exit angle to blank plus blank. And what we're going to use here, we're going to use 90 minus direction, and direction is just the direction of the sprite. So next we're going to use 270 plus our angle, our entry angle, yes. And now we're going to point in direction of our exit angle. Intuitive there. And we also want it to move, obviously. Give it a 50. So this will just allow us to have some cool angles when we bounce. Okay, now we need to bring that command back over to our touching paddle, and we'll add if touching paddle, then bounce. So now I can't get it to touch the paddle. I'm obviously not very good at this game. Where's it gonna be next? I feel like it has to come back this way, right? I'm obviously not very good, and I will be a lot better once we get rid of that lag in the next section. But yeah.